And we are back with the Producer's Corner, ready to get into our first segment of the night. Cora, go ahead, take the floor.
What's going on, good people? So, in case you guys didn't know, I mentioned it before, but I work for Brilliance Audio outside of Icebreaker Radio, and one of the things that we do is record audiobooks. We're starting to get into some more stuff, but main thing right now is audiobooks. As far as recording goes, we also publish as well. It's a publishing company, but I wanted to talk about the whole process of working with spoken word, because it's way different than mixing music. I don't think a lot of people realize just how difficult and how detailed of work it can be. So with Rich rocking with me, I'm gonna go ahead and get into some things. First and foremost, as always, I want to talk about the source. Mic placement, always going to be the most important thing. I cannot stress that enough. Make sure that when you're doing things with spoken word, move that mic around until you find that sweet spot. I know we always talk about the sweet spot, but it's one of those things that once you've been doing it for a while, you know it when you hear it. And every microphone has a different sweet spot sound. But once you find it, lock it in, and you'll get the best sound. One thing you don't want to do is try to think to yourself, well, this sounds good enough, I'll fix it in post. I'll fix it in the mix. You don't want to think that way. Make sure you get the best sound possible. Working with spoken word, you get people who can be mouth noisy, or you hear people swallow and things like that, and you want to minimize that at the source if you can. So that's one thing that I really want to stress: the source. Get that right, and that's with anything that we do. But right now we're talking about audiobooks, or not necessarily audiobooks, but spoken word. So if you think that you're going to fix it in the post, you're not. You're just going to degrade the sound. So Rich, what do you think about that?
Oh man, definitely. You gotta fix your sound. You know what I'm saying, on hand, or whatnot, because it's important. You gotta get your sound right. I try to stress that enough when I'm explaining that to people that record themselves and that come and they want to bring their mixes to me and stuff like that. I always try to explain to them, you know what I'm saying, getting the sound that you want. Most importantly, I find that a lot of people that's really not too familiar with recording is gain staging, which is one of the most important key steps in recording and stuff like that. So I definitely feel you on that one, man.
Yeah, buddy. One thing I want to get into are 5 plugins you will probably use. I'm not going to dwell on them, because one thing that I truly believe is that there's 1,000 ways to do any one task. So in terms of music. So I'm going to go into a couple different plugins here. One is going to be the limiter, noise gate. Other one is going to be compression. Last one is going to be EQ. Matter of fact, I'll start with EQ. So EQ, one thing you want to do when working with spoken word is get rid of mud, dirt, any low-end rumble. You want to get rid of all that stuff and boost for clarity. So boost your high-end in specific areas where you know you're going to need a little bit more clarity, but you don't want to overdo it because you don't want things to get harsh. The simplest way that, I guess, to explain that without going into too much detail, is just use your ears. You don't want to, again, overdo anything. Mic choice is really going to be important. Again, I know I keep going back to that. Microphones have EQ curves. So if you got somebody with a deep voice already, you might want to play with a microphone that might accent that and make it sound rich and really give it a lot of clarity. Maybe you don't want that sound. Maybe you work on female. So again, it goes back to the mic choice, but when you're EQing, tend to be very general. Don't do anything too crazy unless you're, of course, notching out noises or anything like that. As far as compression, again, remember, we're not working with music here. It's just spoken word. So you're probably going to squash it more than you would when you do music, because one thing you don't want when working with spoken word is you don't want people to have to adjust their volume. So if someone whispers or speaks slowly and then goes into something really loud, you want a compressor that is going to ride those both very clean and very evenly. You don't want to get any type of distortion or anything like that. So this is where if you're a Waves user, your CLAs will come in very, very handy for things like this. You just want to have something very, very, very smooth. But you don't want people to have to adjust at all. So keep that in mind. As far as compression goes, there is frequency-specific compression, and what I'm referring to is de-essing. You may have to use a little de-essing. Typically, in music, I find that if you do a good recording, you normally don't have to do it as much. Sometimes with spoken word, it just can't be helped. That's just the way people, say their S's. And so you got to go in and do a little de-essing. I guess a tip for me would be, I like to do multiple de-essing. I'll do a little bit and then a little bit more later on in my chain of plugins. You might find that to be helpful. 3 is going to be the noise gate. If you haven't really worked the noise gate, I suggest playing around a little bit before you go into a project that actually you're getting paid for. But as far as the noise gate goes, you don't want to chop off the ends of words, and you don't want the noise gate to come in and chill the beginning of words either. So you want a noise gate that's going to be very customizable and very flexible. I like using some of the Waves noise gates. A lot of the stock Pro Tools, they got the channel strip noise gate. I like that one a lot. But just play around a little bit. There's no for sure setting as far as noise gate goes. Some voices you can go a little harsh with, and it's okay, and some voices you got to go real light. So that's one thing you want. You don't want mouth noises and stuff, or breathing or smacking in between words. Now, lastly, limiter. You want to, again, kind of emphasize that squashing. I fear saying that because I don't want you guys to say, oh, of course it'll just squash it, so I'm going to just do 10 dB of everything. That's not what I'm saying. As far as limiting goes, I normally do 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction. And as far as compression goes, if you're not compressing on the way in, you can get up to 6 dB, 7 dB. So again, make sure the source is clean. If the source is clean, I feel like the compression will be clean. If you can get your voice actor to speak very evenly, I would suggest doing that. You won't have to hit the compressors and limiters as hard. So, Rich, what do you think? You got any advice on working with spoken word?
Yeah, definitely microphone selection. Make sure when you're doing spoken word, your microphone is essential. There's a microphone. One microphone doesn't work for all voices. Let me put that out there. You know what I'm saying? Just because you have one nice mic doesn't mean it's going to work on everybody that comes through your studio. So that's why a lot of engineers, when they have their own studios, they have a selection of mics. Just so they can, test the mics on different voices. So when you're doing spoken word, or if you're recording commercials for businesses and stuff like that, make sure that you have a good variety of mics. That way you can find a mic that almost fits the person that you're recording. Not only that, gates is very essential, especially if you have a noisy studio. And what I mean by that is if you have an AC vent coming into your booth or something like that, or some type of random noise during the daytime, that noise, the microphone is actually pretty sensitive. And depending on what kind of preamp you use, it'll pick up that as well. So using noise gates very effectively and knowing how to use them is very good. You have to be real careful with noise gates, because if you do it wrong, it will cut off a lot of your accents and your transients on the words. So keep that to mind. And that's it.
Yeah, and that's all I'm rocking with. So back to you, D-Dot.
And we're about to go to our next commercial break with the Producer's Corner. We'll be back. And we are back with the Producer's Corner. Big Rich got a topic for us tonight. Big Rich, take the floor.
Hey, what's going on, folks? Pretty much, I'm going to switch on my topic than what I mentioned earlier. And we'll talk about this one article. And Corey, I know Corey, both Corey and D-Dot will agree with me on this one. Is it's really, a lot of people get caught up in the plug-in the plugin world. I know I do. I own a lot of plugins or whatnot, but there's one plugin, no matter what brand it is, how it's used, what type of it is, if you know how to master it, you'll definitely transform your mixes into something very, very beautiful. It's better than stereo widener, sonic maximizer, tape saturations, and all. And that is the beautiful plugin of EQ. Most people don't believe this, but it's very true. Forget about everything else about how you get a great mix or whatnot. EQ is literally the only plugin that can truly transform your mixes from bland to stellar. The goal is to, in every mix, is to help balance the the recorded tracks. You know what I'm saying? Make them play nice together. And you want to do this on every track to make sure they shine in such a way. And it's definitely understanding the EQ that you work with. Whatever DAW that you use, you know what I'm saying, it comes with a stock EQ. Like say for instance, Pro Tools, they have their EQs, the EQ7. I know Cubase has their Presonus Live, Ableton Live, Logic. All these DAWs have their own stock EQs. So when you're messing with these EQs, it's best to, learn them the best and how, the tonality of the EQ or whatnot. So it makes sense to understand it. And I know we talked about it. It's been a while since we talked about EQ, so I might have to bring that up. But the problem with every bad mix, though, is the lack of clarity and balance. Everything sounds so muddy, mushy, vague, or bland. The solution is the very proper tonal balance, and the best tool for that is EQ. EQ actually controls tone in different frequencies or whatnot. Of course, with any EQ, it's always better to cut than boost. So that's why we on this show we kind of try to dip and dab into EQ techniques as frequently as possible. That way you guys can understand the technique of EQing and get that down pat and understood in your mixes or whatnot. So that's pretty much it, what I got on there on this particular topic. I'm gonna pass it to Corey. You want to add anything to that as far as EQs?
Yeah, I'll give an analogy. Think about EQ as the building blocks you played with as a kid, to where you had to put the square block in the square hole, the sphere in the circle hole. Think of it like that. When you try to put the triangle in the circle hole, it doesn't work, right? EQ is kind of the same thing. You have to put things in pockets where they belong, and mold things around other instrumentation within the mix. And it truly is. It's the strongest tool. I mean, the first thing I normally go to if I hear, let's say, something going weird with the audio, I grab the EQ. It's one of the first things you do. So it definitely is a powerful tool. It's really just about, taking the time to learn it, though. And, no two EQs are the same. So play around with a few different EQs, find one that you like, and really learn what different frequencies sound like. And you will see why that EQ can be so powerful, to where, I've been mixing so long that as soon as you play me a track, I say, oh, that's got too much 250. It looks like he peaked out at 2K, and I don't even have to have the EQ open. That kind of thing is important to when you're mixing. So play around with EQ and maybe set up a test for yourself to see if you can pick out the different frequencies and stuff, because it'll change your whole world when you start mixing. It'll make you see things you didn't see or hear things that you didn't hear before.
Yes, sir. D-Dot, you have anything you want to add to that?
And I just I agree really with everything that both of you guys said, and that's kind of really how I got started in terms of just fiddling around with the EQ. Notice the differences in the sound as you go left to right on those knobs, and then that's really gonna start to, kind of like you were saying, make you hear what's in your music a little bit better. And just as you do this with each song, you're definitely gonna get better doing so, and definitely pick up a lot of literature in regards to EQing and your DAW specifically, and that'll definitely help you as well learn those especially with those stock plugins.
Most definitely. So that's it right there for my segment. I'm gonna pass it back to you, D-Dot.
Yeah, we're about to go to our next commercial break, and then we'll be back to wrap up the show. Yeah.